Another attack by the Russian army on the positions of Ukrainian fighters in the Kursk region of Russia has been prevented. According to information disseminated by Ukrainian telegram channels, the purpose of the column of armored combat vehicles was to support North Korean fighters who were going into battle for the first time. However, the attack was prevented thanks to the efforts of the 36th Marine Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. As a result of the strikes on the advancing column by artillery and drones, 6 armored personnel carriers and an infantry fighting vehicle, 2 armored vehicles were destroyed along with their crew members. 8 servicemen were killed and 13 were seriously injured. It should be noted that the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine announced that North Korean fighters were brought into combat readiness and participated in military operations in Kursk. Images allegedly showing Korean infantrymen were shared on telegram channels. Servicemen from North Korea have reportedly participated in the battles in Russia's Kursk region for the first time. It is believed that advancing servicemen in the footage released by the Zigan telegram channel are Koreans. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that he was aware of the fact that Korean fighters joined the battle in Kursk. The main intelligence department of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has released information, stating that North Korean fighters were prepared for the battle in Kursk. It should be noted that North Korean soldiers have been stationed in Kursk region for some time now. It is likely that Korean fighters will participate in military operations on the territory of Ukraine.
A veteran of Ukrainian military intelligence shared interesting details that accompanied the latest events of the war in Ukraine. On November the 21st, Russia launched a missile strike on the Dnipro with an Oreshnik missile. After that, Putin threatened that such attacks could be repeated and even hinted at the possibility of strikes on countries that support Ukraine with long-range weapons. In fact, this was a threat to the United States and Great Britain. Anton Moravenik, who is currently the head of the analytical department of the Center for Initiatives returnalive.in, Ukraine, compares the situation with the logic of nuclear deterrence. The parties demonstrate strength, but seek to avoid escalation because no one wants a global war. According to him, if a missile of this type had hit the EU, Western countries would have reacted decisively. In essence, Russia demonstrated a procedure reminiscent of a nuclear strike. The warhead was conventional, but the Russian leadership left Moscow and flew to the Urals at the time of the launch. It looked like a full nuclear attack. Algorithm was being worked out, with the evacuation of the leadership, warning of partners, and launch of the missile. Such actions are aimed at putting pressure on the West, and according to Moravenik, this step really impressed some Europeans. According to Bloomberg, Russia may use the Oreshnik ballistic missile against Ukraine in the coming days. According to the US officials, Russia may launch another intermediate-range ballistic missile against Ukraine in the coming days. President Vladimir Putin likely only possesses a handful of the experimental missiles known as Oreshnik, which carry a smaller warhead than other missiles Russia has fired at Ukraine, the informed source said. At the same time, the US does not consider the Oreshnik ballistic missile to be a game-changing weapon, the official said. Vladimir Putin announced Russia's plans to deploy new Oreshnik ballistic missiles on the territory of Belarus. The Russians launched one of these missiles at Dnipro on November the 21st, 2024. Putin said this on December the 6th at a meeting with the self-proclaimed president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, according to the Kremlin. According to Putin, Russia has decided to satisfy Belarus's request and deploy tactical nuclear weapons on its territory. Since we signed an agreement on security guarantees today with the use of all available forces and means, I consider the deployment of such complexes as Oreshnik on the territory of the Republic of Belarus possible, the Russian dictator said. The Israeli army announced that it had destroyed most of the stockpiles of strategic weapons in Syria, carrying out several hundreds of strikes on the territory of the neighboring country, plunged into chaos after the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime. The Israeli army launched more than 500 airstrikes on military targets in Syria. In the statement of the Israeli army, it is said that defense systems and squadrons of aircraft were among the targets that were hit. According to this information, 90% of modern anti-aircraft missile complexes in Syria and 85% of air defense systems were destroyed as a result of more than 500 airstrikes. The statement also claims that squadrons of Russian-made Su-22 and Su-24 aircraft were completely disabled in Syria, and about 40% of the air force was destroyed. Israel is bombing Syria non-stop to destroy the military infrastructure, said professor at Al-Bas University, Ilyas Azuz. According to him, the local population is afraid of bombing Israel because there is no army in the country. Israel has the opportunity to attack. No one can stand up to them by firing at their tanks and planes. Now they are bombing almost all military airfields. People, of course, are afraid because there is no one to protect us. And the situation changes every day. Yesterday evening, according to Israel, they bombed 250 objects, scientific centers, military bases, military airfields, planes, helicopters and tanks. They hit many shots, but for one day they occupied almost the entire city of El Kunitra, which is on the border with Israel, said Azuz. At the same time, Israel has moved its ground forces into a demilitarized zone located within Syrian territory along the border with Israel in the Golan Heights, which Israel already illegally partially occupies. Israel says it wants to create a sterile defense zone and declared the 1974 agreement that had established the buffer zone collapsed. Claiming much of the credit for the lightning advance of the Syrian group, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said to journalists, "The collapse of the Syrian regime is a direct result of the severe blows with which we have struck Hamas, Hezbollah and Iran. The attacks on Syria, Mayrav, Zonzain, A senior analyst with the crisis group said, "We're a mixture of both opportunism and strategy."